What's up, team? Mikey Bell here with Outdoor Adventure Training. Today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite exercises of all time, and it's the single leg Romanian deadlift. Whether you're a trail runner or a mountaineer, a backcountry skier, resort skier, a human being on planet Earth, it really doesn't matter what you do, this exercise is going to benefit you. It's amazing for developing balance and stability, as well as mobility, particularly through the hamstrings and posterior chain activation, core engagement, you name it, it's probably coming into play with this incredible exercise. Unfortunately, this exercise is really only beneficial if you do it properly and effectively. And more often than not, people struggle with this one to maintain great form. So the purpose of this video is to show you how to do it right and safely so you can optimize your results and take your training and performance and outdoor endeavors to the next level. So we're gonna talk a lot about technique, how the hip hinge motion really works, and then we're gonna show you variations and different modalities you can use to progress or regress with this exercise. So let's get right into it. Right off the bat, if you know you struggle with balance, you're gonna want something to help counter that. Whether it be a nice stable wall or a wooden dowel like I have back here in the corner, a ski pole, a trekking pole, those are all great tools to utilize because we're gonna be balancing on one leg the entire duration of practicing this exercise. So I encourage you to follow along, grab some things that you might feel are necessary to help you navigate this challenging but also very rewarding exercise. So to start off, I'm just gonna be on my right leg and we're gonna walk through the whole kinetic chain of your starting position. And really that's where it all begins with just about any exercise, but especially the single leg RDL is all about how you start and how you finish. And hopefully everything else just falls into place. So to start off, I'm balancing on one foot. And that might seem very simple, but there are some things to talk about. We want to apply even pressure through the entire foot, okay? So that means the heel, the outside part of the foot, the toes, the knuckle behind the big toe, which is the head, the distal head of the first metatarsal, and all the way back around to the heel. At the same time, we're working on creating the arch. Don't let the arch collapse. Notice when the arch collapses in the foot, what happens to the knee, happens to the hip, and everything is out of alignment. It all starts with the foot, which is why I focus a lot on foot strength and stability. I've been wearing zero shoes and zero drop shoes now exclusively for several years, and it's completely changed my training. That's a whole different video. If you want to learn more about that, hit me up. But long story short, if you're practicing this at home, consider trying it barefoot or in a minimalist style shoe. But again, it's a very well-balanced position throughout the entire foot. And my ankle is gonna be slightly bent for the duration of this exercise. And with that, my knee is also going to be slightly bent. A lot of people mistake the Romanian deadlift for a straight leg deadlift. I don't like the term straight leg deadlift because that implies your legs are straight. And hopefully, if you're an outdoor athlete, your legs should never be straight, really doing anything in life unless you're trying to measure how tall you are. Other than that, your knees should always be slightly bent. They're your shock absorption system, right? We gotta be able to use our knees and have strong knees. Don't shy away from trying to strengthen all the mechanics we have surrounding the knee. They're meant to be strong and stable and absorb the impacts of our favorite sports. So a slight bend in my knee. So think 5 to 10 degrees. We're not ever gonna bend more than that. So it's slightly bent, but locked in that position. We're not moving through the range of motion with the knee. So continuing up the kinetic chain, so I'm balanced on my foot, slight bend in the knee, and now the starting position is also our finishing position. So I'm really thinking about engaging the glutes and squeezing the glutes in that posterior pelvic tilt, okay? So in squats, for example, when we come out of the squat, we're tucking the tailbone underneath the spine and the pelvis to maximize our range of motion, right? That's full hip extension. If there's any flexion left in there, we're not completing the motion. It's like doing bicep curls like this. We want full extension, full range of motion with just about every exercise we're performing, except for there are some exceptions. So again, balance, slight bend in the knee, full extension in the hip, which you might find that you're going to want to fully extend the knee to get full extension in the hip, but do your best to keep a slight bend in the knee and full extension with the hip. You'll find that naturally with that full extension of the hip, your core is gonna get engaged. So I'm not overarching through the low back. I'm actually drawing the belly button in, keeping the core very engaged, actively bracing. My shoulders are down and back, my chest is up, and this back leg can get tricky for folks, but for now, it's just gonna be a little bit behind us, okay? So this is more or less our starting and finishing position. Our cervical spine, our head, our neck is neutral. This is where we're starting. Okay, so that slight bend. Now, the tricky part. We're moving in to the motion of the single leg RDL, which is a hip hinge motion. It's not a squat, it's not a lunge, we're not bending the knee, we're hinging at the hip, which is very different, okay? So I'm keeping the bend in the knee and the ankle, but I'm staying locked through my upper body, okay? So my spine, at no point, ideally, I'm not perfect, hopefully no vertebrae in my spine are moving whatsoever. The only motion is my femur in the hip socket. That's the only thing that's moving, okay? So the hip hinge, I'm staying locked through the upper body, little bend in the knee, and yes, I'm demoing on 2 legs right now. This is the hip hinge motion, okay? So notice I'm straight from my hip joint up through the crown of my head, and I'm coming back up, okay? My knees are not bending more or less throughout the duration of the movement. A really great tool to practice the hip hinge motion is a dowel, especially if you have a friend to help you, okay? This is a good postural assessment. The dowel should touch in 3 points, okay? So the sacrum, somewhere in the thoracic spine, and then again at the crown of our head. So here you should be able to easily see the 3 curves of our spine. You have a lordotic curve in the low back, a kyphotic curve in the mid, upper back thoracic spine, and then another lordotic curve through the cervical spine. That's how the spine should stay throughout the hip hinge motion, okay? A lot of people think they want more range of motion, so they go like this and they're rounding through their lower back. You tell me if you want to do that through the rest of your life. Most likely not. We really want to work on maintaining this spinal position throughout the duration of our single leg Romanian deadlift. We're getting there, team. Hang in there. So setting my dowel off to the side for now, and we're gonna get into the actual motion, okay? So again, grounded through the foot, slight bend in the knee. I'm trying to fully extend that hip at the end range of motion to get the most out of my glute engagement. Good posture. I'm not over exaggerating the lumbar spine. My core is drawn in. Just standing here might be challenging. That's a great place to start. We're gonna get into the movement though. And for the hip hinge motion, I'm thinking about pushing the hips back, or that something is pulling my hips back behind me. And as a result, because I'm maintaining that great spinal alignment, my upper body comes forward as a byproduct, right? I'm not thinking about leaning forward. You'll find if you lean forward, you're gonna come into your toe, you're gonna be off balance, okay? It really needs to be this motion of sitting back in the hips, pushing the hips back, not bending my knee anymore. And I should be fairly straight from the crown of my head through the back heel, but most importantly, through the spine. Some benefits of keeping this back leg extended, I'll switch legs here so you can see this more clearly. Keeping this back leg extended, again, is a lot of glute engagement, okay? If your leg is all limp, one, you're not getting the core engagement, your back is more likely to round, but you're also missing out on another valuable part of this exercise, which is keeping this glute and hamstring of the back leg activated. A very common mistake I see with this exercise is people's hips opening up, okay? Which is obviously decreasing your core engagement quite a bit, and you're not gonna have the same balance, and you're not getting the same activation through the glutes and hamstrings. So one awesome tip to maintain that neutral pelvis is to think about pointing this back toe towards the front heel. And just by doing that, you'll find you stay much more square and resist opening up. I hate to show you this view, but it is a great view to see what I'm talking about here. So from the posterior view, I'm really staying square, right? So through the pelvis should be nice and flat. Like I could rest a plate on my back and nothing would fall off because I'm trying to point that toe towards this heel. If I open up, notice how I'm no longer in alignment. I immediately felt deactivation in my hamstring and my core. You're just not maximizing your results with this exercise. One thing I really want to highlight with the single leg RDL is your mobility is your limiting factor. If you have tight hamstrings, you should not expect to go very far down towards the floor. In fact, your range of motion might be right here, and that's okay. With persistence, with practice, with patience, you will get there. And really, there's no where to get. It's just all about improving and doing the best you can do. So a lot of hamstring mobility, core activation, glute hamstring activation, all that stuff plays a role into what your body's capable of doing. We never want to force our body into a position it's not yet ready to take. So in the sense of an RDL, what that means is maintaining all the cues we're talking about, in particular, your posture and the slight bend in the knee, all of these things. If you are hitting in tremendous resistance here, that's it. You are done. If you cannot maintain the alignment from the back heel to the crown of the head no longer, and you start to do this, you're toast, okay? That's it. You should only go as far as you can while maintaining this alignment, okay? Which for you, it might be here. For me, it's not a heck of a lot farther. This might be it for me, okay? And that's great. I'm fine with that. Hamstrings need a lot of love. We got mobility videos for that, foam rolling, static stretching, dynamic stretching, you name it. Anything you can throw at your hamstrings is gonna help the mobility down there. Hopefully things are starting to come together. If you're really struggling with balance, I would definitely recommend using the wooden dowel or any sort of a stick, a pole, a wall to help maintain balance and really ease into excellent posture and position. And again, it might be up here for you, okay? Even just working these reps right here with time and again, consistent practice, it will get better. The TRX straps are an excellent tool to refine your single leg RDL technique. You basically want them somewhere around hip height. It doesn't really matter all that much, but essentially you're gonna start in excellent posture and position, and as you hinge back, your hands can come forward and stay on the strap, and the handles rather. And I really find that this helps to teach people to maintain that spinal integrity, and they're less tempted to round forward because they're kind of thinking about bringing their hands out, but not to lean forward into the RDL, right? We're still really working on that hip hinge motion, pointing that back foot towards the front heel and really getting into this somewhat of a Superman position here to optimize our technique and that engagement of the glutes and hamstrings on the way up, squeezing. If you don't have TRX bands, you don't need to spend $200 to practice this one exercise. Hook up a elastic band like I have here, or even a piece of rope. Anything that you can hold on to and slide out will help refine your technique. As far as adding resistance to the single leg Romanian deadlift, really, I find it can help people quite a bit. Even if you're kind of struggling with them with body weight, adding a bit of weight can kind of help ground you and really hone in on that activation, which is really the whole point of adding some resistance. There's a lot of different schools of thought about how to add resistance to the single leg Romanian deadlift. You can certainly do it with a barbell. My favorite way to do this is to hold a kettlebell or a dumbbell in the hand of the same side of the standing leg. So if I'm gonna demo this on the right leg, the weight is in my right hand, and I find this really loads that right side, and I'm less likely to open up my hips. You can certainly hold this on the opposite side and experiment with that for you. For me personally, my preferred way to do this as far as getting the most result and activation out of this exercise, holding the weight on the standing leg, I'd recommend starting light. So really nothing changes other than we really need to make sure our posture is great. We're letting it hang, okay? Hip hinging, really feeling that stretch through the hammy, and then activation back up. The weight is not going forward. It's sliding straight down my leg. It's on a track, just like it would be in a barbell deadlift or a barbell squat. Hopefully your barbell isn't moving forward or back at all, and it's straight up and down. So if we follow a straight line with the dumbbell or the kettlebell, whatever you're using, still working that excellent posture, technique, glutes and hamstrings back up, okay? And I always recommend doing this exercise with good control and tempo on the way down, and good activation on the way up. From the anterior view, so straight on, I'll switch sides here just so I'm staying a little bit symmetrical while filming this. Really pay attention to the knee. What's gonna happen is, especially as you add resistance, that knee wants to cave in, and I talk about this a lot on this channel. Keeping that knee externally rotated, in particular for outdoor athletes that are doing a lot of uphill, downhill movement, is critical to really get those hips engaged, take that pressure off the knees, and help strengthen the muscles around the knees. So I'm keeping that external rotation, letting it hinge, hang, squeeze that glute and hamstring, back up, okay? And with this other foot, my free leg, I like to keep my ankle dorsiflexed, so toes up, so I can clear the hips and that foot comes through. Meaning if I was plantar flexed, I'm gonna lose some of that range of motion. Just a little tidbit of information that might help you. Another fun way to sprinkle the single leg RDL into your training program is to throw it into a compound movement. So for example, I oftentimes will do a single leg Romanian deadlift, clear the hips, back into a reverse lunge, up, single leg Romanian deadlift, up into a reverse lunge, right? So you can add that to any exercise, really. You could do a single leg RDL and then do a step up, right? Just throwing it in there, because you will find a lot in the field. There's a lot of times where you might, oh, I almost fell, corrected myself. That's why we're practicing a single leg RDL. The more you practice this, the more likely it is going to translate into your training routine. Oftentimes I will do a single leg RDL, up, balance, curl, press, uncurl, back into the single leg RDL. Of course, with excellent form, staying square, great activation. Really the RDL transitioning into the curl to press is just something for me to focus on a little bit more of balance and just make the exercise overall a little bit more challenging. If you're a follower on my channel, thank you, first of all. Secondly, you know that I absolutely adore the Bozu ball, and the single leg Romanian deadlift is no exception to the rule. So if you feel like, hey, I got this RDL down, man, like everything you're saying I'm already doing, I wanna ramp it up, get yourself a Bozu ball and do the same exercise, all the same cues on the Bozu. So bend in the ankle, the hip, the foot, clearing the hips, tucking the tailbone forward, core engaged, bend, hinge, let it hang, far more balance involved. Squeeze the glutes and hamstrings. If you're a real beast, go ahead and grab your weight. You can certainly do weighted Bozu ball, single leg, RDL, curl, press, reverse lunge. It never ends. You can integrate this exercise into so many different exercises. Bozu ball is a phenomenal tool. Doing the single leg RDL or most balance exercises on the round side is very challenging. I'll give you my best effort right here. So balancing, letting it hang. Don't forget the fundamentals. Failure. What kind of trainer am I? All right, team, that wraps up the single leg RDL tutorial. If you have questions, which I hope you do, leave them in the comments below. If you want me to expand on any topics we touched on in this video, let me know. I love helping you all out. Super grateful for everyone that's subscribing to this channel. Please keep liking the videos. It really means a lot to me. It's helping us grow and reach more people and ultimately help more people pursue awesome objectives in the outdoors. That's really what we're all about. And really what this exercise is all about is longevity. As an outdoor athlete and a human in life, don't just think about what's coming up this spring or the next fall of big objectives you have. Think 10, 20, 30, 40 years down the road. Where do you want to be? What do you want to be achieving? That will help inform what to do today. Thank you so much for being here. Once again, my name is Mikey Bell, and we'll see you next time at Outdoor Adventure Training.